good afternoon, and welcome to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I am your host, Kevin King. He is I, and I am him, the 800 Credit Score Man himself. And thank each and every one of you for coming in and tuning in to the 800 Credit Score Man Show every Saturday, 1:30 Central Standard Time, and that's 2:30 on the East Coast, 11:30 a.m. on the West Coast. So again, thank you each and every one of you for coming in and listening to the show. So look, what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to talk about a couple of things. So we're going to talk about why your credit score dropped. We're going to talk about some reasons why your credit score may have dropped today. Your credit score has actually been in the news this week for some reason. So we're going to discuss why that is. Why was it in the news and how that impacts you? Is it good? Is it bad? Whatnot? And we have a very good question of the day as well. So we're going to delve into all of those things today. And you know how the show works. So first, welcome to all and any and all new listeners to the show. Thank you for listening. Wherever you found the show, hit me up and let me know how you found out about the show. So you can email me at 800@creditscoreman.com, or you can catch me on Instagram and Facebook as 800 Credit Score Man. Shoot me a message. Let me know how you found the show and what platform do you listen to it on. Is it iHeartRadio? Is it Spotify? Is it Podcast? Is it Podbean? Is it where else are we? Is it Alexa? Is it Castbox? On and on and on. Wherever you found the show, let me know where you found the show. I truly, truly appreciate it. So if you're new to the show comes on, we talk about a topic that's surrounding your credit. My favorite part of the show is the question of the day, because that question comes from you, the listeners. So I want to thank each and every one of you that have ever submitted a question to the show. If I did not answer your question on the show, resubmit it. Maybe I'll answer it on the show at a later time. So you can email me your questions, 800@creditscoreman.com. You can email me your questions there. And then also within the show, I give shout outs. So I give shout outs to people who have anniversaries and birthdays and graduations and all those kinds of things as well. And we try to get it all done in about 30 minutes. Now, it never happens in 30 minutes. Usually it's 35 minutes, 37 minutes, but we try to get it all done. So let's jump into the show a little bit. But before I do, let me throw out a couple shout outs. I want to shout out Lenny and Kim Camphor. I met these people in Miami this week while I was down there on some R&R and some work. So I met them there. They were celebrating 22 years of wedded bliss. So I want to say happy anniversary to Lenny and Kim Camphor. And then I got to give a happy birthday shout out to my nephew. It's not a show if there's not a king that doesn't get a shout out, right? So Ryan King, he is celebrating his birthday coming up this Wednesday. So happy birthday to you, nephew Ryan King. And I got to give a shout out to Dennis Robinson. He's celebrating a birthday. So happy birthday to you, Dennis Robinson. All right, so let's jump into the first thing I want to talk about today is the 6 reasons that your credit score dropped. Now, if your credit score drops, don't panic. Do not panic unless it's a significant drop. So I'm talking 40 to 100 points. That's definitely significant and worth a panic. You've got to find out what in the world is going on if your credit score drops that much. All right, so that's the reason to panic. But if it drops 6 points to 10 points, something in there, that's not worth panicking over. All kinds of things happen. I did an entire show dedicated to this. All kinds of things happen within what goes on with your credit scores and how they calculate and recalculate and all those things. So sometimes you might take a little dip. If you've done nothing at all to your credit, and you see a 40 to 100 point drop, then you definitely need to get into your credit report. Take a look at it. If you've got to go to www.annualcreditreport.com to get your actual credit report from the 3 credit bureaus, which are TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. If you've got to go there to do that, then go there and get your credit report so you can see what in the world is going on. But here, so let me give you one reason your credit score dropped. You're using too much credit. Now, I tell you guys all the time, you've got to use some of your credit. If you haven't used your credit in some time, it's kind of stagnant. It's not going anywhere. It's definitely not going to go up, so it could potentially go down. But you've got to, if you're using too much credit, though, then it's absolutely going to hurt your credit scores as well. So typically we talk about this when it comes to your credit cards. If you're using too much of whatever your limits are, then you're going to have some issues and your credit score is going to drop. So if you charge something, large over the last month, or if you were, sitting on the cusp of, you had like a 28% credit utilization. If you had that much and then that pushed you over that 30% limit that we talk about where you want to be for your credit utilization, then that could bring your credit score down. So, when you make that next payment or whatever and it comes back down some, if you pay that whole thing off or pay more than the minimum, then you might see that boost come back or those points come back to your credit score. But that is definitely one thing. If you're using too much credit, then it can definitely bring your credit score down. A second thing that you can do that's going to drop your credit score, of course, is missing a payment. So if you miss a payment, then it's definitely going to bring your credit score down. A couple of weeks ago, I did a whole show and I gave you some tips at the end of that show how to avoid missing payments. Just some common sense things. So go back, listen to the show a couple of weeks ago that talks about your credit cards and your bills overall, so you won't miss those payments, and utilize some of those tips that I gave you in that particular show. And then also in that show, I said what to do if you already have missed payments. So if you already got missed payments on your credit report, excuse me, if you've already got missed payments on your credit report, then what do you want to do to try to get those off of your credit report as well? So missed payments are definitely something that can bring down your credit score. Now, a third thing, and we're going through these pretty quickly. So a third thing, closing old credit cards. That can absolutely bring your credit score down. So I'm going to say this, don't close those old credit cards. When you close those old credit cards, well, let me step back a second. I know that we're all looking to get out of debt. It's part of your financial goal. You want to get out of this credit card debt. It's probably the worst debt that you have when it comes to anything as far as the interest rate and how much you have to pay and all of those things. It's probably one of the worst debts. May not be your largest debt because you might have student loans or a car that's much more than whatever your credit card debt is, and of course your home is probably even more than that. But it's part of our financial goals. Every year, when you look at your finances and you say, what can I do better? How can I eliminate this or that? Part of those goals is to get out of debt and to be debt free, to get rid of that old credit card debt with the high interest rate and etc. So you do want to do that. That's good to get rid of that. And your credit score goes up if you start paying those credit cards down. Your credit score will definitely go up for you. However, when you're done, when you're totally done, you've paid that particular card off. If you got 4 or 5 cards, you paid one of them off. If you just got one card and you paid that card off, do not close it. You don't want to close that card. Just one credit card can impact 90% of what makes up your total overall credit score. So you don't want to close that card, even though it has a zero balance on it, even though you're tired of them, you were so happy to finally pay them off. You don't want to close that credit card because it helps you in so many areas. It absolutely helps you. So it's going to help you because it has a limit but no balance on it. That definitely helps you. You've made great payments on it over, who knows how many years you've made payments on it on time every time. You want to keep that on your credit report and helping you out. And the way to do that is to keep it open at the time. So you want to do that. If you've had that card for a long time, it's helping with your length of history or your average length of history. That's what I like to call it, right? So it's going to help you with your average length of history. And then, of course, with that debt utilization, and it helps you with your mix. The mix are the types of credit that you have. So you have some revolving, you have some installment. A credit card is a revolving account. So it's going to help you with your credit score. So do not close your credit cards. If you close the card or a card was closed for you, you got to watch for that too. You haven't used a card in a long time. It's been a few years. They haven't heard from you. You haven't heard from them. It's a potential that that company will go ahead and close that card because they haven't had any kind of interaction with you at all. So you want to make sure that you keep those cards open. I actually recently had a credit card close on me. For me, it wasn't a big deal. They actually notified me. that they might close the card if I didn't contact them, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just a card that I didn't need, never used it once, maybe in the last 10, 12 years. I've used it one time. So it wasn't a big deal for me. I went ahead and I let them go ahead and close the card. I just didn't respond to them. And I knew that close was coming sooner or later. But you do not want to close your cards, especially your old cards. Now, and I also did a show, I believe, on when to close your credit cards. So sometimes you just want to close them, you need to close them, or what have you. Which ones do you want to close and what not? Go back, find that show. Go back, find that show, listen to it so you know about all of those things as well. So of your reasons that your credit score goes down or it may drop, first one we talked about was having too much credit, using too much credit of that, missing of payments, and now closing those old credit cards. That's something you definitely don't want to do. So before I get to the next one and the next one and the next one, let's go ahead and throw a couple more shout outs out there. So I got to give a shout out to Shanoa Hayes. She is celebrating a birthday. So happy birthday to you, Shanoa Hayes. Ramon Morrison, I got to say happy birthday to him, one of my frat brothers, a past pole mark at Indianapolis alumni chapter. So happy, and an Alpha chapter brother as well. So happy birthday to you, Ramon. A happy birthday to Eric Cochran. He celebrated a birthday. Happy birthday to you, Eric, as well. All right, so let's jump to the next one. So what's the next thing that can cause your credit score to go down or to drop? So if you paid off a loan, if you paid off that car note, if you paid off your home, if you paid off your student loan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, if you paid them off, then that can drop your credit score. Now, I know it's bass backwards. That's what I like to say. It's bass backwards because seems like you should be awarded, right? You should be awarded for fulfilling your financial obligation. You had a loan, somebody lent you $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $60,000, $200,000, and you were able to go ahead and pay that bad boy off. Then you should be rewarded for that when it comes to your credit score. But unfortunately, that's really not the way that it works for us. So you might pay it off and you might see that your score goes down a little bit. So it is a little backwards. So this impacts your factor that's called your mix. So your mix is that revolving versus installment that I just mentioned before. So it's an installment loan. And so it's 10% of your score. So if you don't have both of these types of on your credit report, then the credit bureaus are not sure exactly what's going on with you, how responsible you'll be, this, that, and the other. Those are just things that they look at. So it's like half a dozen in one hand and 6 in the other. You're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Your score may go down, but the positive side is that now you don't have that car payment anymore. Now you don't have that student loan payment anymore. Or if you were able to pay off your home, you don't have that anymore. So you don't have that large bill and you've got some more cash in your pocket. So cash is supposed to be king, right? So cash is king, but if it is, then credit is queen. So you want to make sure that you go ahead and not keep open accounts. I don't care if it's a credit card or if it's a loan of some sort, just to kind of keep your credit score up. If you've done well with paying on time and keeping everything in order, then you're going to survive. You're going to do really well when it comes to your credit scores and whatnot. So, yes, you can see a drop or a decrease in your credit score by simply paying off one of your loans. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and get another loan necessarily after that if you don't need the money or whatever. I'm not suggesting that. Maybe you find other ways to help boost your credit score. So now that you don't have that car note anymore, so you got $300, $400, $500, $600, $800 in your pocket, then what you could do is start applying some of that, if not all of it, to your credit card. So if you have credit card debt, and I don't care what your utilization is, so your credit card utilization is where you take whatever your limits are versus what your balances are. So if you got $10,000 worth of limits and you owe $4,000 worth of balances, then that means you have a 40% credit card credit utilization. So you're at 40% there. Maybe you take that $500, $600, $700 in 1 month and you throw it to one of your credit cards. Maybe you do it for a few months in a row, and maybe you get your credit utilization down under 30%. Then you get it down to 20%.